Today's question is, how do we respond when leaders fail to live up to the standards that we expect of them? We're in Leviticus chapter 21, and this chapter is all about priests, God's ministers, and how they had to live even more carefully because they represented the Lord before the people. In verses 1 through 9, the priest must stay extra holy. So God says to Moses, tell Aaron's sons, the priests, to stay away from anything that makes them ceremonially unclean, especially touching a dead body. They could mourn close family like parents or children, but not just anybody. No cutting their bodies or shaving bald spots for the dead. That's pagan stuff. God says that they must be set apart as holy to their God and must never bring shame on the name of God. Also, priests couldn't marry a prostitute or a divorced woman. The daughter of a priest who dishonors her family by prostitution was to be punished severely. God holds leaders to a higher standard. If you claim to represent God like pastors, elders, or even dads leading homes, your life ought to reflect His holiness. Sin in leadership brings double shame and it harms God's reputation. In verses 10 through 15, we see the high priest must be even stricter. Now God talks about the high priest. He's the top spiritual leader. He couldn't even mourn for his parents by leaving the sanctuary. He had to marry only a virgin from his own people. No widows, no divorcees, no foreigners. Why? He must not dishonor his descendants among his clan, for I am the Lord who makes him holy. The higher the position, the higher the responsibility. God's leaders can't live like everybody else. They're called to stricter holiness. This points forward to Jesus, our perfect high priest, who was completely pure and without sin. In verses 16 through 24, we see physical defects disqualify priests from sacrifice. God says priests with physical defects couldn't serve at the altar. That included blindness, lameness, damaged limbs, being a dwarf. They could still eat the holy food, but they couldn't approach the sanctuary to offer sacrifices. This wasn't about God looking down on people with disabilities. It's a symbol showing that those who come near to God must be whole, pure, and set apart. All these Old Testament rules pointed to Jesus, the perfect priest who had no defect or sin. So what's Leviticus 21 teaching us? First, leaders must live holy lives because they represent God. Second, sin in leadership brings shame to God's name and harms the people. Third, God calls for higher standards in those who serve Him publicly. And fourth, all this points us to Christ, the perfect high priest who makes us holy. Now listen up. Holiness ain't just for the pulpit, but leaders got to lead the way. If you're a pastor, elder, deacon, Sunday school teacher, or even a dad, your life preaches louder than your words. God's leaders are called to be blameless, not perfect, but above reproach. This chapter also reminds us, thank God for Jesus. All these old rules and rituals point to Him, our flawless, sinless, perfect high priest who makes us clean. So let's live holy, especially if folks are watching us and following our lead, because when leaders fall, folks get hurt. But when leaders stand firm, folks get blessed. So keep reading your Bible and don't be dumb.